If you look at the coronation footage, you'll see that everyone bows and curtsies to the king, and no one moves a limb, a muscle, when Camilla passes.
She survived the hate mail. She survived the photographers camped outside her front door for years. She survived a country that openly despised her. She clawed her way back from the worst public humiliation any woman attached to the British royal family had endured in the modern era. And she did it quietly, carefully, and without ever once asking for sympathy. And then, in a single private meeting, the man she had given 30 years of her life to looked her in the eye, said no, and walked out of the room. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what Camilla asked for and what Charles refused tells you everything about where this monarchy is actually headed. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unsee it. And if you are new here, hit subscribe right now. Let's go all the way back to where this actually begins. Act 1. The debt he agreed to pay. To understand what is happening inside the British royal family right now, you have to understand the full weight of what Charles already sacrificed before any of this started. This is not a story that began in 2023 or 2024. It began in a darkened driveway in the English countryside decades ago, when a future king was running a covert operation to protect a relationship the palace had decided was unacceptable. At Highgrove Charles's private country estate, his valet, Ken Stronach, carried out a set of instructions every single night that had nothing to do with serving a future king. He was told to treat Camilla Parker Bowles as the mistress of the residence. Diana was still Charles's wife. The world still believed the marriage was intact. And every night after midnight, Charles would walk to his bedroom door and switch off the property's elaborate security alarm so Camilla could move through the house without triggering it. Every morning, Stronach was sent into Camilla's designated guest room to physically mess up the clean, untouched bed so it would appear she had slept there, alone, in a separate room, like a proper guest. Royal protection officers had their own assignment. They called ahead to Camilla's home whenever Charles was on his way. She would then kill every light in the building so his car could roll into her driveway, completely invisible from the road. Nobody saw him arrive. Nobody could prove he was there. His nickname among those who knew the operation was the Prince of Darkness. He felt the embarrassment of that label every time he heard it. He took it anyway for her. This was not a spontaneous affair. This was a coordinated, years-long logistical operation involving multiple members of staff, all working in concert to protect a secret that was already tearing the most watched marriage in the world apart from the inside. Charles was not merely having an affair. He was running a system, and he ran it, because he had already decided that losing Camilla again was something he was not prepared to do. The palace had separated them years before any of this began. She had been deemed unacceptable by the institution and quietly directed toward Andrew Parker Bowles while Charles was at sea and powerless to stop it. Sources from that period described Charles as devastated, reportedly drinking heavily in the days immediately following the separation, desperate to get back to her. One insider claimed that when Charles eventually returned and found her gone, he never fully accepted it. Not in the years that followed, not through his courtship of Diana, not through the wedding. One palace source claimed Charles reunited with Camilla the same night he came back. He couldn't wait another day. They reportedly met at an undisclosed location where Charles is said to have spent hours with her. And from that point forward, the arrangement never truly ended. Diana knew. She had known for a long time. And one evening at a party near Richmond, she decided she was finished pretending otherwise. She noticed that both Charles and Camilla had disappeared from the room at the same time. She moved toward the stairs. The people around her understood immediately what was about to happen. Guests physically stepped into her path and told her directly, "Diana, don't go down there." She went down anyway. What she found at the bottom of those stairs broke something in her. Charles and Camilla were tucked into a corner together, close, comfortable, in a house full of people who were all pretending not to notice. According to sources present, Diana reached out and grabbed Camilla by her dress and pulled her away from Charles with enough force that it could not be misread. Camilla did not look frightened. She did not look embarrassed. She looked at Diana with a slow, steady expression that communicated one thing clearly. She believed she had already won. Charles stepped between them. He looked at Diana and said, "You shouldn't be here." Camilla then told him quietly to step back and let her speak to Diana alone. He did. And Camilla turned to face her. Diana, by all accounts, was holding herself together through sheer force of will. Her eyes were burning. She was refusing to cry in front of this woman. She looked Camilla directly in the face and said what she had come down those stairs to say. She said, "I know exactly what is going on. I obviously am in the way, and it must be hell for both of you, but I do know what is going on. Don't treat me like an idiot." Camilla said nothing. She held Diana's gaze with that same unbothered expression and offered no denial. Diana recorded every detail of that confrontation on secret tapes for biographer Andrew Morton. Those tapes were released to the world after Diana died in 1997. The public heard the entire account in Diana's own voice, and they turned on Camilla with a fury that did not cool for decades. The hate mail sent to publications was so violent that Tatler magazine contacted police. Photographers surrounded Camilla's home every morning. Her son Tom reportedly kept binoculars in the bathroom so the family could count the photographers hiding in the bushes before anyone stepped outside. Charles watched all of it happen to the woman he had chosen, and he did not stop. When William and Harry came to him before the 2005 wedding and asked him directly face-to-face not to go through with the marriage, telling him it would cause more harm than good, he sat with them, heard every word, and married her anyway. That is the full weight of what he had already spent before this story reaches the part where everything changed. His first marriage, the public's goodwill, his son's blessing, he had absorbed every cost asked of him. He had chosen Camilla over everything, which is precisely why what happened next destroyed something inside him that could not be repaired. Act 2. The betrayal he could not absorb. In January 2023, Prince Harry sat down on CBS national television in front of tens of millions of viewers and made a specific, named accusation. He accused Camilla directly of leaking private family conversations to British tabloids to rebuild her own public image. He called her dangerous. He said she had been cultivating connections inside the British press, and that because of those connections, in his exact words, there would be bodies left in the street. In his memoir, Spare, he wrote that Camilla had sacrificed him on her personal PR altar. He alleged that certain stories printed about him in British newspapers could only have come from her. Now, hold that accusation against what Charles already knew from inside the palace walls. He had spent years trying to rebuild his relationship with Harry. Every time he made progress toward reconciliation, something would surface in the British press that made it harder, more raw, more impossible to navigate. Stories that felt like they came from inside the family. Stories that seemed to contain details only someone in proximity to the situation could know. And now Harry was standing on American television, pointing directly at the woman Charles had chosen over his own sons as the source. That is not just a betrayal of Harry. That is a betrayal of everything Charles had surrendered to protect her. But the private damage, sources say, was building alongside the public damage in ways that were beginning to wear the king down. Charles had one central vision for his reign: to modernize the monarchy, to prove the institution could be lean, accountable, and relevant in the 21st century. He had staked his reputation on it publicly and repeatedly. And sources indicate that Camilla had become an obstacle to that vision rather than a partner in it. While Charles was in cancer treatment, barely able to stand some mornings, but still pushing through public duties, sources say Camilla began moving in ways that alarmed people closest to the king. She was canceling Charles's official engagements without his knowledge. Commitments that had been scheduled, confirmed, and communicated to foreign dignitaries and government officials were being quietly pulled back. The people on the receiving end were not receiving explanations. They were receiving silence. In the world of international diplomacy and institutional relationships, that kind of silence signals one of two things: a king too ill to function, or a king too weak to control his own household. Neither was acceptable, and the cancellations were not the worst of it. Sources indicate Camilla was also inserting herself into financial decisions that sat entirely outside her remit. Decisions about where institutional money moved, which projects received funding, which priorities received resources, and which ones quietly disappeared. Charles had built his entire public identity as king around accountability and the elimination of waste. He had spoken about it repeatedly and specifically. And now his wife was making moves behind the scenes that directly contradicted everything he had put his credibility behind. Moves that, if they became visible, would make him look like a man who could not run his own institution. Palace sources indicate that Charles confronted her directly. He told her she was crossing a line. He made clear that her role had defined boundaries, and she was moving past them in ways he would not accept. Camilla did not flinch. She held his gaze, and her expression communicated without a single word what she thought of being managed by the one person on earth who knew exactly what it had cost her to stand in that room. She had watched the world spit on her name for 30 years and kept moving. She had paid for this position with 3 decades of her life, and now he was standing in front of her, telling her she had gone too far. Charles felt it land. And that was the moment, sources say, when he made a decision, not an emotional one, a structural one. He needed to put someone else in charge. He needed to transfer the power, and he needed to move before she had any opportunity to respond. Mid-roll CTA, numeraldos. Before we get into exactly how he did it and what Camilla did when she realized what was happening, subscribe if you haven't already. This channel is built for people who want the full story, not just the version that fits in a headline. We're going deep on this. Stay with me. Act 3. The woman who was already replacing her. While Harry and Meghan were consuming every available headline with Netflix deals, tell-all books, and podcast launches, something entirely different was happening on the other side of the palace. Catherine was not generating friction. She was not making demands. She was not leaking anything to anyone. She had launched a project called Shaping Us, focused specifically on early childhood development. She did not simply attach her name to it. She sat in rooms with neuroscientists and government officials and spoke specifically about brain development data and policy architecture. She was making a concrete case backed by research that what happens to a child in the first 5 years of life determines a significant portion of who they become as an adult. And she was pushing that case toward actual legislative policy. Politicians began listening. Researchers began returning her calls. She was getting meetings that royal titles alone do not open. A 2025 YouGov survey put her public approval rating at 74%. Camilla, for context, has never reached that number, not once across 30 years of public life. Then January 2024 arrived and tore the working structure of the senior royal family apart simultaneously. Within hours of each other, the palace announced that Charles had been diagnosed with cancer and that Catherine had undergone major abdominal surgery. Charles was pulled from public duties. William stepped back to be with his wife and their 3 children. For nearly 3 months, Camilla was the most visible senior working royal in Britain. She attended engagements. She represented the institution at major events. She did more public work in those 3 months than she had managed across most of the previous year. The world barely registered it because the world was completely consumed by something else. Catherine had not been seen publicly since Christmas Day. The palace was saying almost nothing about her condition. That silence created a vacuum, and the internet filled it. The hashtag #WhereIsKate exploded across social media and stayed there for weeks. People were frightened for her. Conspiracy theories multiplied into the millions. Every day, without a clear update, made it worse. On the 22nd of March, 2024, Catherine released a video. She was sitting outdoors, calm and direct, her children visible nearby. She looked straight at the camera and told the world she had cancer discovered after a planned abdominal procedure. She asked for time and privacy while she went through treatment. That video was watched 15 million times within the first 24 hours. World leaders issued public statements. Flowers appeared outside Kensington Palace without any organization, without anyone being told to bring them. People showed up because they wanted to. Within 48 hours of that video going live, Camilla had effectively become invisible again. 3 months of carrying the institution gone in a single news cycle. Multiple credible outlets made the same observation within days of Catherine's announcement. They said the public reaction felt like August 1997. That is not a casual comparison. That is the most loaded sentence anyone can say about the British monarchy. August 1997 is when Diana died. The grief that followed was so total and so raw that it shook the institution to its foundation and nearly severed its relationship with the British people permanently. Author Tina Brown documented how every significant decision the royal family has made since Diana's death has been filtered through one question: are we about to make the same mistake again? The institution failed Diana. It was cold when it should have been human. It was managed when it should have been honest. It protected itself when it should have protected her. The public watched every bit of it and never forgot. Charles watched all of it too. He was inside the machine that failed her, and he had carried the weight of that knowledge ever since. Now he was watching the British public invest in Catherine the same way, not because of any managed campaign or carefully constructed image, but because of who she was: warm, direct, honest, and unafraid to show it. The public trusted her. They feared losing her. They were invested in her in a way that could not be manufactured and could not be bought. Charles made his calculation. Catherine had demonstrated she could connect with the public in a way Camilla never had and never would. She had handled a severe personal crisis with complete dignity, produced serious policy results, and still made ordinary people feel genuinely cared for. That combination was what the monarchy needed to survive the generation ahead. The numbers were clear, and Charles was done pretending otherwise. Act 4. The Systematic Transfer of Power. By spring 2025, the internal reshaping of the British monarchy could no longer be quietly contained. Major news outlets were reporting what royal insiders had been watching for months: a deliberate, systematic transfer of institutional power, moving in one direction only, away from Camilla, toward Catherine. People who had spent decades observing the royal family said they were struggling to characterize the pattern as anything other than intentional. Each individual shift could theoretically be explained away. Taken together, they told a story that was impossible to misread. The most consequential part of the operation was what happened to the patronages. In the royal world, a patronage is not a side project. It is the entire job. It is the reason a working royal exists as a public figure. When a senior member of the royal family officially champions a major charity or institution, that patronage is the foundation of their public identity and the justification for their position within the institution. Patronages in areas like the arts, healthcare, and literacy are what a working royal is for. Several of Camilla's most significant patronages were reportedly removed from her and transferred to Catherine. These were not recent additions. These were projects she had spent decades building from nothing, nurturing through years of open public hostility, expanding through consistent personal investment during some of the worst years of her life. After Diana died in 1997, Camilla could not appear in public without serious security concerns. The country's grief for Diana had curdled into open fury toward her. She spent years in effective isolation, unable to go anywhere without photographers, unable to speak publicly without triggering a fresh wave of hatred. Those patronages were how she clawed her way back. They were the public identity she built carefully and painfully over 20 years to replace the one that had been destroyed by Diana's death and the world's verdict on her role in it. Removing those patronages was the systematic deletion of everything she had constructed since the worst period of her life. And it was done without any public acknowledgement that it was even occurring. Alongside the patronages, a second and more structurally significant shift was underway. Catherine was being brought into decision-making spaces that had previously been the exclusive territory of Charles and Camilla together. This was not preparation for a future role. This was present-tense operational involvement in the actual running of the institution. Sources reported that Catherine had been designated expanded authority as a counselor of state, the formal title given to senior royals who are legally empowered to act on the monarch's behalf when he is unavailable. Her expanded role reportedly included the authority to receive foreign ambassadors on behalf of the Crown and to preside over certain Privy Council meetings. The Privy Council is the formal body of senior advisors to the monarch, and presiding over its proceedings is one of the most direct expressions of royal authority that exists. These are powers that have never traditionally been held by a Princess of Wales. Catherine was not the Queen, she was not the monarch, and she was being handed functions that went far beyond anything her title had historically carried. Camilla's name was reportedly absent from key institutional documents where her involvement would normally be expected as standard protocol. Charles was not passively allowing Catherine to rise, he was actively engineering it. Sources described him reviewing her major public speeches before delivery, opening institutional doors that would normally require years of seniority to access. He was treating her the way a chief executive treats a chosen successor, investing every available resource in the person they believe is the only one capable of keeping the organization viable into the next generation. And here is the detail that reveals how deliberate and complete the operation truly was. By the time the pattern was visible enough for outside journalists to report on it, it was already finished. The councillors of state legislation had already been passed through Parliament. Catherine's expanded authority already had the force of law behind it, not just palace preference. Charles had moved every piece before Camilla had any formal window to mount a response. Act 5. The demand and the answer that changed everything. Camilla saw it clearly. And she had exactly one move left. She went directly to Charles and she demanded a written guarantee. Not a verbal understanding, not a palace preference. A document with legal and institutional weight that could not be quietly reversed the moment it became inconvenient. She wanted written protection covering 3 specific things: her rank, her remaining patronages, and her status protected against any further transfer of power, regardless of shifts in public opinion or changes in palace strategy. The specificity of that demand tells you exactly how clearly she understood what was happening. But there was a 4th layer that no one should miss. Charles is a man in his 70s who has been battling cancer. His long-term health is genuinely uncertain. When Charles dies, William becomes king. William, who, before the 2005 wedding, sat down with his brother and asked their father directly not to go through with the marriage. William, who has no documented warmth toward his stepmother and no publicly known desire to protect her position inside the institution. Camilla was not just asking for protection against what Charles was doing in the present. She was asking for protection against a future without her husband, against a new king who had opposed her from the beginning and who would inherit the throne with no written agreement, requiring him to treat her with anything beyond basic courtesy. She had already been burned once by a verbal agreement with this institution. The 2005 arrangement had been explicit. She would be princess consort only, never queen. That was the publicly stated price of getting the British people to stop actively booing the relationship. That agreement lasted until Charles had enough power to change it unilaterally. She was not going to rely on another unwritten understanding. She wanted it in writing this time. Charles looked her in the eye and said, "No, Sources indicate Camilla's expression changed completely. Her eyes went wide. She opened her mouth to respond, and nothing came out. Her lips were visibly trembling. Charles told her it was done. Then he turned and walked out of the room. Camilla stood alone, her face flushed, not from anger, from something that had not touched her in 30 years of surviving everything this institution had thrown at her: fear. And the first real taste of shame. Charles had made his calculation, and this time he committed to it without ambiguity. He had let emotion drive his decisions for decades. He had chosen Camilla over his sons, over public opinion, over his own better judgment, and he had watched the damage compound year after year. That was finished now. He knew where the public's trust lived. He had watched what happened when the institution failed the person the public loved. He had been part of it with Diana. He had carried that weight for the rest of his life since. He was not going to repeat it. Protecting Catherine's position was now functionally the same thing as protecting the monarchy's survival into the next generation. Whatever that cost him personally, he was prepared to pay it, even if what it cost him was Camilla. This is the part of royal history that never makes it into the official record, cleanly the private confrontations, the structural maneuvering that happens before any public announcement, the moment a man looks at everything he chose and decides it no longer adds up the way he thought it did. Camilla Parker Bowles spent 30 years surviving what most people would not have survived. She absorbed the public hatred, rebuilt her reputation piece by piece, and earned the position she believed she had secured permanently. And the man she did all of that for is the same man who, in the end, decided the institution required someone else. History has a long memory. So does this channel. If you want to keep following stories like this told with full context, full credibility, and none of the noise, subscribe now. Leave a comment below telling me which part of this story surprised you most, and I'll see you in the next one.